Welcome, everybody, to today's webinar, Maximizing Use of Space, Efficiency, and Revenue with DynaDome Retractable Structures, sponsored by DynaDome. I'd like to thank everyone for joining today. We have a really informative and valuable discussion lined up. Our panel today, we have Gian Odzimir, Vice President of Sales for DynaDome. Tim Ackerman is VP of Properties, YMCA of the Suncoast, and John Schlansker, VP of Facilities and Risk at the YMCA of Greenville. I want to say that if you're in the market for this kind of solution, you are in for a treat. Tim and John are incredibly enthusiastic about their decision to go with a DynaDome, and I think you'll find their real-life experience with these structures eye-opening. Before we get started, I wanted to note quickly that you can enter questions at any point during our discussion, and we'll try to get to all of them. And with that, I'll turn it over to Gian.
Appreciate that, Andy. Thank you for joining us today again. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to educate and answer some questions, and hopefully, get some momentum going with retractable structures within the industry. It is relatively new. I recognize that we've been around for 40 years, yet still there's people who don't know that this type of structure exists. Real quick, I want to get into my background, where I'm from. First name, Gian. It's usually the first question that pops up. It doesn't look like you say it like Gian. It's a G. It's like neon, but with a G. Turkish born, but raised here in Northwest Indiana. Graduated from Purdue with civil engineering degree in '97, and went on to get my business degree in 2003. And in 2004, came into DynaDome and working under several capacities in design, sales, engineering, and helping with the facility solutions. So DynaDome, where did we start? How did we get here? In 1984, when I was 10 years old, my dad was putting in a pool in our backyard here in Indiana. Did not want to close it for 9 or 10 months of the year and watch it go unused. Looked around the Thomas Register, which is an old yellow pages of manufacturers, didn't find anything existed, and that's how it started. To this day, my dad, Veli, is still involved within the design, and we do everything still out of our Northwest Indiana facilities. We design, we manufacture, we deliver, and install all of our structures. What's the challenge for many of you? And we have a variety of guests here represented, from architects to owners and operators. I think we find indoor air quality in indoor aquatic environments is the #1 complaint, right, within an indoor air aquatics facility. We're going to show you how that's where we are a solution. Weather disruptions. If you're a YMCA and you have camps in the summer, if that pool is outdoors and you have bad weather, shifting and moving things around, the solutions for that outdoor pool, if you're looking to make it year-round. Fixed buildings can be very expensive, don't offer you that flexibility like a retractable building, like DynaDome. And then equipment costs in dehumidification, HVAC, maintaining them, replacing them. These are all challenges that you're faced with, right? So solution, being DynaDome, is going to help you reduce those costs, give you that indoor air quality that's missing with or is a complaint with the fixed buildings, and allows you to focus more on operating it, your space, less on maintenance, less time, less money on maintenance. And how are we doing that? You go from an indoor aquatics facility to outdoors in under a minute, allowing you to operate 24/7. If it's a summer day and you have camps or you have aquatic aerobics or any type of programming, you don't have to shift and move or have a plan B in case of inclement weather. As well as 4 seasons areas that allows you to utilize that space in that same footprint year round. Again, about indoor air quality, we'll talk a little bit more about that later directly from our guests here. And then towards the end, obviously cost is a factor involved, right? So I'll talk a little bit about that in terms of return on investment as compared to whether it's a fixed building. I actually have an example on the air inflated structures or the bubbles. So Andy spoke about Tim and John both being with us today. Tim's property in Florida, we installed our first DynaDome at that, or not our first, but our first YMCA DynaDome at Tim's location in Citrus County. He'll be talking and answering questions, but really talking about his experience with DynaDome, not only from the design and planning phases, but over the years and how his operations has changed, knowing that we existed. John similarly will discuss his experience with us as well. Both have experience in the past with the air inflated structures, so they're going to be able to speak about that at length as well. So with that being said, I recognize some of you may not know still what DynaDome is, what this retractable structure means. And so I have a couple of videos. This first video is John's cane halter facility that we installed a couple of years ago. And it's a video with the structure retracting in less than 40 seconds, or right at 40 seconds. What's happening right now is Brian Vest, their director, is pushing a button on a remote control. And in 40 seconds, this indoor airspace, this indoor aquatics environment is going to be outdoors. In John's case, at the cane halter facility, this is adjacent to what they call their indoor pool. And as you come to the DynaDome space and walk through that indoor pool, the air quality is immediately evident when you go from one space to the other. And so in less than 40 seconds, you're outdoors. The video will continue and show it retracting back. And we can just let that go here for a second. You can see the swimmers in the pool. So it's to indicate that we're not doing anything with the video, but to show, and there is a swimmer in here somewhere. But yeah, 40 seconds is there, right? There is, from an equipment standpoint, and the very next video is gonna be one of Tim's space. This is the DynaDome in Citrus County, showing you a different variation in terms of connecting to the existing building with an elevated support structure, and allowing your members to enter and exit from the building, the main area, the main members area, and coming in and out of their locker rooms within that space. Before I was getting into this video, I was going to speak a little bit about the equipment. Heaters and fans are typically what you're going to see needed in a DynaDome space. Dehumidification equipment, this expensive air handling, is not necessary, which is always a surprise for many architects and engineers and operators as well to believe, right? But hopefully that's where John and Tim are going to be able to convince in general, as far as the feedback from members and guests and how their experiences have been within the DynaDome structure and space. So with that being said, as this is going and opening, I'm going to hand it over here to Tim to speak about his experiences and talk about his DynaDome. Tim, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. My pleasure. We built this YMCA at the same time we built our DynaDome. We had looked for an option to build an indoor natatorium structure when we were building the building. At the time, the building, including the dome, was about $7.5 million. We were looking at an additional $3 to $4 million to build a natatorium on top of that, and didn't have the money to do that. So I looked around online at what our options might be, knowing that we had used an air structure at one of our other facilities in the past and had since abandoned that because of the indoor air quality issues, the hassle with takedowns, setup, storage, and all those types of issues that came into play. And we found a dome, DynaDome online, and flew to Tennessee and flew out to California and looked at a couple of domes, and it really seemed to be a good solution for us. The beauty of this system is, and the video didn't quite do it justice, this actually is a double stack unit. So it actually stacks back even further than is shown in this picture and gives you a full open over the entire 25-yard swimming pool. The advantage for us has been actually a few advantages. Number one, our members love this thing. Number two, the upfront cost from a capital standpoint was very reasonable for having the flexibility that we have for an indoor-outdoor swimming pool without having any of those Dectron units or any of those types of things that are a never-ending expense for someone who owns an indoor natatorium. So upfront costs came into play, and the flexibility it gives us, we still love every day, including this morning. It is 86 degrees in Citrus County today, but it was below 70 this morning. So the dome was closed until about 9 o'clock, and then with the push of a button, it became an outdoor pool when the weather was conducive to make that happen. And that's been part of what our members love. The bonuses we got, UV protection on our pool decks without putting a bunch of sunshades out. That was just a little bonus that we got. We designed this with that structural, we call it a sidewalk over top of our locker room exit doors, so that you could walk out of the building and directly into the dome, whether it was opened or closed. It made no difference at all to the member, and they didn't have to walk from indoor to outdoor and then back into the dome. We were fortunate that we could do that during construction, which was a real bonus for us. We've had very little issues with this thing. We've pressure washed it 3 times now in 8 years. It was pressure washed last week. It still looks brand new. We've found no signs of corrosion at all, and we've had it checked on a regular basis because we're kind of paranoid about those things at the YMCA. Over time, we've had some issues with suspended ceilings over swimming pools that didn't seem to hold up well for us. And we wanted to make sure that this was not going to be one of those issues. And so far, we have seen nothing to indicate any kind of structural issues whatsoever. But with it all being aluminum, stainless steel, and polycarbonate, it's difficult to see where any of that would be an issue into the future. From an upfront cost, like I said, we saved millions of dollars doing this thing. And it really took us from not having the opportunity for an indoor swimming pool venue in Citrus County to having an indoor venue when we need it and an outdoor venue, which is what the majority of people would prefer, honestly, is outdoor swimming. So this gives us the opportunity to run this pool year round without hesitation. Yeah, I don't know what else I can tell you about it other than we're planning on how to do our second one. The YMCA that had the inflatable air structure. We have not had it for about 4 years, and we have seen a drop off in our membership there in the wintertime, when actually we should see a spike in membership with all the snowbirds coming down. So we're looking at putting a dome over that swimming pool too, and even potentially building a separate sidewalk system independent of the building to support that dome, so that in the wintertime you can come directly from inside to outside without going actually outside of the dome. The other advantage that we've seen with this thing is on all of our swimming pools are geothermally heated and cooled. We heat them in the wintertime and we cool them in the summer using geothermal heat pumps. We have found with this pool that there's no need for us to blanket this pool every day, which we do the balance of our swimming pools. We have 9 other swimming pools, and all of them are blanketed throughout the winter time, and then also in the hottest part of the summer in order to keep the cool in the water, if you will. And that is a tremendous load off of our staff and also from our pocketbook, because I don't have to pay people to come in a half an hour before we open and take blankets off of a swimming pool. So this has been just wonderful. Indoor air quality issues have been zero. We've really had no issues with that whatsoever. You have the ability to crack the dome an inch. You can crack the dome 10 feet, or you can open the thing wide open and solve any issues that you have with odors or anything like that. And it's been an amazing addition for us. And it's really shocked me that I was glad to see that John has done one of these domes now over his pool. But this is the answer we've all been looking for how to have an indoor pool and still have the flexibility to have an outdoor pool without spending $10 million on an natatorium, which now, I mean, it's got to be at least 6, 7, 8, 9, $10 million. Plus the ongoing expense of Dectron units for dehumidification. You have to recognize when you build this type of a structure, this is an outdoor swimming pool with a structure over it. It is not an indoor pool. So all those ASHRAE standards and all those restrictions that are piled onto an indoor natatorium don't exist with this type of a structure. At least they did not in Florida, and I can tell you they still would not in Florida at this point. The other issue we had was making sure we could meet hurricane code, and this meets Miami-Dade hurricane code, which we were very happy to see. And it's actually ridden out 2 close call storms with hurricanes, one last year and one about 6 years ago, with no issues whatsoever, not even a window blown out. So we've been very pleased with this system altogether.
Excellent. I appreciate that. You touched on what I was going to ask or ask you to touch on as far as the hurricanes go. Yeah, the panels themselves, they are rated for Miami-Dade, which means they can take a missile is what they call it, right? And still, and meet that rating, right? That highest hurricane rating. We also have structures on in Charleston, South Carolina, meeting the 148-mile-an-hour wind that they're rated for as well for one of their city pools. Tim, thank you very much. I'm sure we will.
You're very welcome. Let me throw in too real quick, if I can, Gian. We were concerned about how we were going to light this pool. In Florida, you have to have a minimum amount of foot candles to operate after sunset and before sunrise. We put poles up and actually lit down through the structure in the wintertime with zero issues on meeting the minimums required for the pool deck. So, with the polycarbonate panels being as clear as they are, and they are very clear, we were able to meet those requirements too. And that was another added bonus that we didn't have to get carried away with additional lighting and specialized lighting for this thing. And now with the new domes, all solar driven and totally independent of the facility, it's even better than it was when we put this dome in. And I guess we're going to retrofit to that here in the near future. So
Yes, we are, Tim.
yes.
Appreciate you touching on that. John, picture of his Kane Halter YMCA's DynaDome. John, talk a little bit about your DynaDome experience and how it's helped your membership and your facility, and what your future with the Greenville YMCA's future and DynaDome looks like as well.
Sure. Glad to be with y'all. Thanks for the invitation and everything else. This is at our Kane Halter branch. This is our flagship YMCA right near downtown Greenville. The original building was built back in 1958 and was a massive renovation 2008, 2009. At that point, we had an indoor pool and then an outdoor pool right next to it. For the first, 15 years, we operated that outdoor pool with a bubble, an air inflated structure. It's just something we did. We're in upstate of South Carolina, so we can operate 8 months out of the year as a true outdoor pool. But for those 4 months, it is fall, it is spring, it is winter, and it changes every other day. So for those 4 months, we had a bubble up. We've been in the planning stages for something like this for several years. Gian and I met, 7 or 8 years ago, and I was intrigued by the building and the structure and how it could help us. we just had to figure out how we could do it, how we could afford it, and all that kind of stuff. And we knew, if anybody has a bubble, you have a limited lifespan. 10, 12, 15 years, probably depends on where you are and how long it's up, and probably more than anything, how long it's stored. And so we were in the planning process to try to figure out how to do this, and came across an unfortunate situation where somebody decided to vandalize our bubble. So this happened, I don't know, late January, early February, just about 2 years ago. And at that point, we had not finalized a design. We had not raised a penny. We had not said, all right, this is what we're going to do. But after the bubble was vandalized, we were forced to scramble. We ended up having to shut that outdoor pool down for the next, it was about 2 months. We quickly rallied our team, staff, donors, volunteers, Jihan and his team, our architects, our engineers, everybody. And luckily we had the basic plan ready and their basic price ready. And we just said, hey, we need to pull the trigger and go ahead and do this. It did not make sense for us at that time to spend another couple $100,000s to put in another bubble. That just didn't seem like the right thing for us to do. And so over the course of, really, it was about 6 months, we went through design, permitting, and our contractors were on site starting the project. Construction for us, total construction, we were down for, I don't know, 2.5, 3 months. And that was site prep, installation, all the upgrades in terms of lighting and some fans and some heat and all that kind of stuff. But that was a really short time in our minds. In the last 1.5 years, it's been a game changer. It opens and closes super fast. We've seen utility costs drop dramatically. The experience from our members is just night and day different. I mean, again, in South Carolina, we can have a January day when it's 60 degrees and we can open it up. And 2 years ago, they were looking up at a fabric and humidity and all the things that come with a bubble. Lighting, Tim talked about lighting. Lighting wasn't an issue with, new LED lighting and the new design. We're able to tuck stuff up right up on the structure. We probably spent some extra money that most people don't in terms of moving air. So we've got some extra fans, exhaust fans. We put in some extra heat in terms of just trying to keep that deck a little more comfortable. We probably overdid it in hindsight, but that's okay. We just don't turn it on. It's not that big of a deal. But it has been, I mean, and just the image it sends to the community from a membership-based organization, it is really easy to sell. Whether you're a lap swimmer or a senior or swim lessons or whatever, people love it. Tim touched on it. There were some side benefits we didn't really know getting into it. The shade. This is just a very sunny site. And so in the middle of summer when it's blazing hot, that the shade that comes from the structure has been just a wonderful amenity that we didn't expect when we first got into it. Where we're going from here is we actually still have one more pool with a bubble over it. And so we are actively working. I got a design proposal from Jihan this morning on how do we cover this next pool. We're hoping that we can jump on this over the next 6 months, 9 months. I don't, we'll see how fast we can get it to come together, but we're planning on putting our second one in here in the next year. We've done a lot of master planning at other facilities in Greenville. And several of those don't currently have pools, but we have said if we're going to put a pool, we're going to put a pool in a DynaDome. Our days of building an indoor pool, at least for the near future, are done. It makes no sense to us. Tim talked a little bit about the financial piece. It makes no sense for us to spend $8, $9, $10 million on an indoor pool when we can go in this route and take care of our members and have something we're proud of, and it'll last forever and ever. So, and I saw the question about the hurricanes. We actually got hit by Hurricane Helene in Greenville this year. And I mean, yeah, we're 6 hours inland from where that hurricane came, but 85, 90 mile an hour winds and just like Tim said, we didn't have an issue. Closed it up tight and it was fine. The building didn't have power for 10 days, 12 days, but we could still open and close the DynaDome because guess what? It's on solar. So it was the only thing that could open and close. None of the pumps worked, and heat didn't work, and all that other kind of stuff. But at least the structure opened and closed. So I don't know if that is helpful, Jihan, but that's certainly been our experience.
No, it's been very helpful. Talk a little bit about the mechanical equipment if you can, real quick. You talked about extra fans inside.
Yep.
You talked about extra heat. You don't have, like Tim talked about, you don't have a Dectron
That's right.
dehumidification system.
Yeah. So we did our site visits. We went up to Raleigh, North Carolina, 3.5, 4 hours north of us. Similar climates, but the feedback that we got from the Raleigh Y team is that particularly during summer months, they noticed that the hotter air tended to stick or be present on both ends of the structure. And so that's really where the fans came in, was how can we just quickly and easily move air around? We put in traditional exhaust fans, like an intake on one side and a couple of exhaust fans on the other side, just with the idea of, again, being able to move air during, whether it's warm and rainy weather, whether it's humid 65-degree weather, but just another way to move air. And then we went with infrared heaters on both ends. Greenville's climate is fairly, I would say, fairly decent, but we still do see a traditional winter every once in a while. And so we wanted to make sure that those folks that were on the deck could at least be comfortable. We're not trying to heat it and warm it like a traditional indoor pool, but just enough to kind of take the edge off and make people who are sitting under those heaters be comfortable. If we're going to do kids programs, we're going to do seniors programs, when they're on deck, we want to make sure that it's not an uncomfortable setting.
Right. And your coaches and your lifeguards or your guards.
Correct.
In that comfortable setting as well.
Correct.
Excellent. And I touched on it earlier. In order to get to this pool, you've got to go to your other indoor pool.
Yes.
Your actual, I should say, always indoor pool, which does have some of those the equipment that has maintenance or can routine
Yes.
maintenance. Talk a little bit about.
Yeah, so we still have 2 traditional indoor pools. This branch has one, and one of our other branches has one. I think it's if you're operating a pool, it is what it is. But it is hot and sticky and humid. We had to replace both. We went with AON units, but we had to replace both dehumidifiers within the last 2 years, and so combined they were about $800,000. You're going to have to do that every 10, 15 years. If you're lucky, and in this structure, we don't have to do that. If I just have to replace a fan or an infrared heater, we're not talking A, that much money, and B, it's an item that doesn't have to be specially made for our pools. And so, huge benefit there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest differences between when someone's looking at, trying to establish an indoor aquatics environment. This is usually one of the line items in a budget that will stick out. And, Tim touched on it. They don't use one. Your space doesn't use it. Indoor air quality from your members' feedback is anything but about indoor air quality. So I think, being able to convince those that in the past, when you look at indoor pool or aquatics solutions, it's always been either the natatorium, and then with the combination of the equipment that saves, it's intended to save the structure, but also provide indoor air quality, the comfort. At some point in time, like you're saying, maintenance is required, and until the maintenance is done, air quality would suffer somewhat. And in our space, when you open it up and it's outside, it's outside. There is no indoor, right? So I appreciate that feedback. I think we've touched on basically everything that I wanted to. Again, thanks for your guys' time as we continue on here. The ROI on that structure, right? So as someone, an operator, an owner, might be looking at what are the costs that I'm faced with in terms of if I'm considering DynaDome or an air structure, air inflated structure. We took real world data. We pulled your team, John, and got some other readily available information, either direct from manufacturers to get some of this data. And if we're short-term thinking, and you look at this sheet, the answer is kind of clear here. Over 20 years, if you're looking to, serve your community and your membership, and, service the dollars that is coming from your donors in a responsible way, I'm going to suggest that a 48% difference in your overall costs in 20 years, as it's leaning towards a DynaDome versus an air inflated structure, with the operating costs, the mechanicals, the upkeep, storage, put it up, take it down, replacement, all these factor into that 48%. Again, what's not included there with the air inflated structure is the flexibility. There is a different aesthetic, right? Indoor air quality on top of the ROI that you're seeing and experiencing there with the that 48, almost 50%. To me, it's huge. It's a big deal, right? For anybody who's considering. And a DynaDome versus a fixed structure, right? An indoor space. That comparison is almost not worth mentioning. It's 2 times, 3 times, 4 times the amount, and you will always be indoors. Again, same footprint. You have 2 spaces, flexible year-round programming, unimpeded. Just going to touch on a few other things that may have not been mentioned either by Tim, myself, or John. It is aluminum, polycarbonate, stainless steel, and rubber. These are your main materials. This is why, one of the reasons why a dehumidification system is not needed, because you're not going to be concerned with corrosion on your structure or structural integrity over the years. It's just not necessary. The aluminum is treated or finished, I should say, with an anodized finish as opposed to a paint. Paint is going to do aluminum and paint expand and contract at a different rate. And so throughout your seasons, at some point, the paint or applied paint would separate from the aluminum, creating a maintenance nightmare, right? You're going to have peeling and chipping and cracking. You do not get that with anodized surface, a protected surface. You do have the 2 options in color, however, when you do anodize, with that dark brown that we saw with Tim's DynaDome in Florida, or the satin finish at John's. The downtime, it says minimal. Honestly, I can't think of when you do have downtime, right? Before we all got on, we discussed at times during heavy storms, maybe you might consider clearing the area, but that's obvious, right? Not many people are going to be in a pool environment if you have heavy winds and storms, even if it is an indoor pool. So that lowers your operating costs, your maintenance costs, and finally, with the peace of mind, with a long product lifespan, it's going to last 20 years plus. It does go through building code. We go through life safety and health department and fire department, you know, prior to being able to bring it and enclose a space that's going to have that type of occupancy. You know, so I guess a few other things that we want to touch on here. Again, open and uncovered whenever you want, right? Open it 2 feet in the morning for your masters swimmers. Open it in the afternoon when you have free swim. Close it for the seniors that don't want the cold air on their skin. Whatever and whenever you need it, it isn't going to be a process like you would with either always open or always closed. That will allow you to do year-round programming, which allows you to spend less time on maintenance, more time and less time on, for instance, with your camps, if you have bad weather, you're not taking and trying to figure out where to put everybody. But you can also then program all of your time for that open pool. And again, with the equipment expense and indoor air quality, I keep harping on it. But I harp on it for a reason, right? The feedback consistently with any indoor aquatics environment, whether it is your members, your swimmers, your parents, your guests, or your lifeguards, ask them their biggest complaint, it's going to be indoor air quality. And I think John and Tim spoke pretty well on the fact that they don't have any issues with that. And it's I feel like it's a big deal. With that, again, Tim and John, thank you. Stick around. I know we have some questions here in the Q&A section. And by all means, please, if you have questions, put them in that Q&A and we'll go through them here.
Yeah, we've got quite a few. So Matt is asking, if you can't have outdoor stadium lighting, like Tim mentioned, can you put lights on the interior?
Yes, actually, Tim's solution is quite the opposite in terms of common. It's more common to have lighting inside, and whether that is mounted to the structure, you know, like John's cane halter facility, or pole mounted LED packs that are, you know, maybe one at the end and a couple on the sides of the pool. We've seen that as a more common solution than on the dome. And that being the case, because when it is retracted and you do need to meet, you know, the candle, see the bottom of the pool, that requirement is being met if you have the pole mounted lights. So certainly flexible either way, right?
Right. John is asking, do you do tennis court enclosures?
So we did start off in aquatics, right, in the 80s, and quickly realized, or I shouldn't say quickly, eventually realizing that, you know, our structure, I guess directly, real quick, yes. And why? Honestly, it is meant and can be used for any space that benefits from indoor and outdoor. So whether that's a tennis court, basketball court, turf, pickleball, right? Pickleball is becoming more and more popular. Push a button outdoors, same thing, right? The impact on materials. So from a tennis perspective, it's polycarbonate. Its marketing material suggests 250 times stronger than glass. So you're not going to hurt the structure in any way. And from a design perspective, to get the clearances, your overhead and your play area and additional play area beyond the end lines, we can do it, but we have not done a tennis court yet. It's just a matter of time, though, right? And I guess I touched on this at the beginning. We've been around for 40 years. The solutions in the past for aquatics in general, right, has either been always indoor or air inflated structures or always outdoor. So we're becoming a little bit more known, and as time continues to pass and Tim goes through another season and John goes through another season and Raleigh and South Carolina and all these customers of ours are able to touch on the longevity of it, it'll continue to go that route. And so we will see pickleball in the near future. I'm positive. We'll see tennis and we'll see turf fields for soccer, aeronasiums, these other applications that can serve that purpose of indoor outdoor on the same footprint, because real estate in a lot of cases is limited, right? So being able to utilize the same footprint in two different ways is a big deal. So I appreciate that question.
Let's see here. Tim and John, you might want to weigh in on this one. What are the noise levels like when it is closed and you have children programming going on? Are there any abatement needs possibilities?
We've not seen any issues. We had an indoor pool at our Clearwater YMCA for years. And it was a giant echo chamber. We have not found that to be the case here in Citrus County. Mainly because when we're teaching swim lessons, the dome is either, the beauty of Citrus County is it's on the Gulf Coast of Florida. It's just north of Tampa. The weather's pretty mild. There are times when I wear a jacket when I'm up there in the wintertime, but not very often. And the majority of the time, this dome is in, after about 9 o'clock in the morning, it's in the open position. And we've just not seen any of those issues. I can tell you when the swim team is in the dome, and we're having a swim meet, which we host in this particular swimming pool in Citrus County. It's noisy, but it's not any more noisy than our Palm Harbor location where we're having an outdoor swim meet, to be honest with you. It's chaos no matter where you are. And the noise comes along with that. So that's not been a big issue for us at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, ours is closed probably more than Tim's is. But it is no different than just a traditional indoor pool in terms of noise when it's completely closed up. We generally, when we're trying to have larger groups for swim lessons and everything else, we are trying to open the windows, open the structure a little bit, and that tends to help some of that noise dissipate. And it also helps just the environment as well, right? You got that airflow and that air movement. That helps dissipate both of those things. So has not been a dramatic issue for us either.
Great. I think I'll combine a couple of these questions. And Gian, maybe you want to speak to these. Have you done this with any 50-meter pools? If so, what is the cost difference and how long does it take to open and close? And then also, are there any size limitations?
Great question. 50-meter pool, yes, we are in the we're in a planning phase with a community college in Oregon for a 50-meter pool at their site. Essentially, permits are just about done, and we're looking to deliver that by the end of this year. Opening and closing. So with that 40 seconds, great question, right? It's on about 100-foot long structure there. So, but I don't really want to focus on 40 seconds or a minute. The idea here is that it's not 45 minutes. It's not tons of prep, right? It's operational. So in the case of the Kane Halter YMCA, when they retract it, there is no foot traffic going in either direction in terms of outside that space because of elevation drops on one side and other buildings on the opposite side. So they have fencing and barriers. In Tim's case, at the Citrus County Y, when they open it, there's a secondary pool. There's a splash pad over there. And so operationally, you just want to keep an eye, right? But again, that's your additional. So if it's 40 seconds for 100 feet, then 50-meter pool, 164 feet for the pool, 200 feet roughly for the enclosure. You could be about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. You know, and then in the inverse for closing it up. From a span perspective, there is limitation. On the length, there is no limitation, right? As long as the space you have will cover it happily. This span is going to be, so our largest span currently is about 128 feet wide on the coast of South Carolina in Charleston for one of their city pools. I touched on it earlier, 148 mile an hour sustained winds, hurricane winds, right? So as you move further away from the coast, where wind doesn't become your governing load case, you're now looking at more snow and not so much seismic, it's either wind or snow. And from a snow perspective, the arch shape that you see, you know, on the screen, this is a strong shape. It is never the case that, you know, snow is going to be an issue. It does dictate our span though. So, you know, if we're going to try and put something in Park City, Utah, where snow loads might be 10 times what I might see in Indiana, I might not be able to go as wide, but 100 feet wide in most areas, I can answer your question without asking engineers to look at it. If you want to do 130, 140, depending on the location, I'll be able to ascertain whether it's possible with the caveat of having an engineer look at it. Or if that location is in Park City, I'll be able to tell you right away, no, but maybe we can figure out an alternative solution, right? But in a lot of cases, right, 8-10 lane pool, 100 feet wide, 115 feet wide, certainly will satisfy the deck requirements and being able to have your spectators if it's a competition pool. Yeah.
Right. A couple of questions here about lightning. I don't know if Tim and John, I know you guys have had some experience with this, but just asking about whether or not you can be in the water when it's closed and there's lightning around, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I can tell you that from a YMCA of the Suncoast, even with our indoor swimming pool at the Clearwater YMCA, if we have lightning within 7 miles, we close the pools. Our insurance company is, number one, it's getting hard to get insurance anymore for YMCAs because we do things no one else wants to do. And we just go ahead and close the pools. We have a lightning detection system. It's closed for 30 minutes. If lightning is within 10 miles, 7 miles in a couple locations, but yeah, it's just the nature of the beast. And we don't vary from that. Other YMCAs do. I know some Ys that don't close at all during lightning, but our YMCA in particular does close during lightning storms.
Yeah, we follow the same policy that Tim does, so I can't really comment on lightning.
Yeah, I mean, from a code perspective, in terms of how it's built and grounded and you know, we have not done anything in terms of the engineering to satisfy that requirement to essentially qualify as that type of structure where you can gather in case of lightning storms per se. But we also haven't had a situation where anything adverse has occurred either. So it's just not been a question that's come up during any kind of building code compliance like review or you know, in that regard as far as getting permits and just looking at compliance. So
Sure. A couple of questions here about cold weather climates. Robert is asking, what is the farthest location of a DynaDome installation? Another person from the Pacific Northwest, I guess it's all temperature related, but another first person from the Pacific Northwest is asking, what's the typical deck temperature during your winter months? Yeah, what's the furthest north a DynaDome has been built? So kind of all of those are weather and climate related.
Right, right. So furthest north, not at this scale in terms of volume of air and size of pool, but furthest north, we've installed a retractable structure. Edmonton, Alberta, I believe, is probably the furthest north. Toronto, St. John's, New Brunswick. I mean, Canada has their fair share. Manitoba, of DynaDome structures where they do utilize that space year round. And in some cases, they'll go 10 months and just say, you know, we're just being real. It's too cold to be outside, so they don't use that space, right? But when you talk about a structure of this size furthest north, currently it's going to be in the Virginia, Carolinas, for no other reason other than that's where predominantly our structures and you know, our business is. We go where the customers are. Portland, Oregon, or at least nearby Portland, is where we'll be doing that 50-meter pool and the 50-meter pool I was discussing earlier. To touch on the temperature inside, right, during the winter, if you're keeping that, so this is an outdoor pool, and you're designing it as an outdoor pool. So that outdoor pool for your masters swimmers is 78 to 82 degrees water. Air temperature is going to be roughly 68 to 72 degrees. So not too big of a delta between the air and the water temp. So there will be some moisture and evaporation in the air, and this is where the fans come into play to circulate that air so it doesn't collect on your walls, you know, or the surfaces and then turn into algae later on, right? So, but you're not trying to utilize those infrared heaters to get your space to be 80 degrees inside, right? Or 75. It's not, it's, you recognize what you're trying to do with the space. And like John talked about earlier, you're just taking the edge off for anybody who might be inside. Because it's enclosed, you don't have wind. You don't have that break in. If you're the swimmer, for instance, you don't have that cold breeze coming off across your skin. So, you know, you're not trying to get it to 78 or 80 degrees inside there. So, good question.
Yeah, and maybe you might want to touch a little bit more on just sort of condensation, humidity issues. One person actually specifically asking Tim, looking at your pictures of your facility online, I noticed condensation buildup, assuming it's on the exterior. Is there condensation buildup? Those issues.
Yeah, the pictures, it probably is from rain on the exterior. Do we have humidity inside? Absolutely. It's a body of water that's, you know, our pools, we run about 84, 85 degrees, and the master swimmer learns to adapt. Because we teach a lot of kids how to swim, and a lot of active older adults do water aerobics classes. So is there humidity inside? Absolutely. I mean, but you know, it doesn't get to the point where it rains inside of the dome or anything like that. The beauty of the design is that the water runs down the panels and the columns and leaches onto the ground there. So really, we don't have water dripping from the ceiling, although we have seen that at our Clearwater YMCA when the Dectron unit doesn't work. But we don't see that in our domes at all, to be honest with you. There's no dripping on the floor or anything like that, or on the pool water. So it's been a good solution for us.
Yeah, I was going to say, just for us, you know, we've got during the winter months, during the colder months, we gear this towards our lap swimmers, so it stays at about 82 degrees. We keep the indoor one at 88, 89. You know, it's bath water in there. I think it's been a little bit of a learning curve for us and for our staff. When we first opened it that first winter, they were afraid to open it to let it, I'm going to say, breathe, because they were concerned it was going to let all the warm air out of the structure. And so I think we had a lot of condensation that first winter we operated it. But this last year, several of us finally ganged up on the staff and said, no, you need to let it breathe a little bit. and first thing in the morning, come in and let all that humid air out and turn the fans on and open some windows, and it's going to warm right back up. Because yes, we have some infrared heaters which warm the deck and the concrete and all that kind of stuff, but you got to remember the warmth coming from the water as well, and that's warming that structure up pretty quick. I mean, we've had to train them, get it open, let it breathe for 5 minutes, and then you can close it right back up. And that has done wonders, from an air temperature perspective. I mean, we had single temperature degree days and nights and mornings this past winter. It was a real winter for us. And on most of those days, if we left it closed, we're talking 82, 83 degrees on the deck. I think the other big thing that we didn't recognize early, we talked about the shade, but the solar gain when it's closed is pretty impressive too.
I was just going to talk about that.
The
Yeah.
solar gain really helps. I mean, there's many a day during the winter, it's 45 degrees out, but if it's a bright sunny day, we don't even have to turn the heaters on. And so
no.
that's another big benefit.
Yeah. Definitely in a sunny day, you're going to see about 50 to 60 degree difference. And it's strictly from the sun. So none of that additional benefit that you're seeing, that's coming from your pool, but primarily that extra heat during those days. And when it's cloudy or overcast, you're getting about 25 to 30 degree difference between outside and inside. So yeah, forgot to touch on that earlier. So appreciate you bringing that up, John.
Nice. Looks like we have one more question around height limitations. Have you enclosed any pools that have water park features such as slides, and are there height limitations?
Certainly enclosed spaces with slides, right? I think one of our first structures they had, maybe it was considered a mini slide, but I mean at the peak, you're on 100-foot wide, roughly you're seeing about 30 feet clearance. And that's using, mainly our standards, standards being the vertical wall height's a minimum of 7 feet. And then it kind of goes up from there in that arch shape that you see, on the picture on the screen here. But if you had some slide features, now, obviously, if we're talking Wisconsin Dells and, large water park slides, these are a different animal. Right. So, but if we're talking, and I'm not, again, talking a standard residential slide either. So we're a happy medium in between there. But in general, if we had to accommodate a 20-foot tall slide, certainly we can definitely do that. Yes. 20, 30 feet tall even. So it's a matter of changing some of these angles. I mean, we are the designer, the manufacturer. So within reason, we can customize a lot of what you're seeing us or on our website and examples. But yeah, to a certain extent, if we're accommodating tennis balls and their flight, I think within that same kind of a space, you're also able to accommodate these slides, these vortex, these water features at the pool. So
very cool. Well, that brings us just about exactly to the top of the hour. Gian, Tim, John, thank you guys so much for taking the time today. Thank you to DynaDome for sponsoring today's webinar. Everybody in the audience, you will be getting a follow-up email with a link to the recording of the show. And feel free to reach out to Gian with any questions that you might have. And again, thank you everybody for joining us.
yes, absolutely. Appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you, John and Tim as well.